Welcome, everyone, to In the Spotlight. Joining me tonight is a friend and former guest of the Rosie and Bill Show, and he's a man who wears many hats and wears them all incredibly well. Multi-instrumentalist, magician, founding member of the Nitty Gritty Dirt Band, and a whole lot more, John McEuen. John, welcome to the show again, sir.
Well, thank you. It's really nice to be back, Bill.
Well, I appreciate that, John. And first and foremost, the most pressing question that I have to ask is, how are you feeling, my friend?
Well, considering what I went through recently, I'm feeling pretty darn good. And what I mean by that is a couple months ago, I had a coronary bypass, triple bypass, and that was following 2 heart attacks. There was a special on at the hospital, a 2 for 1. And so I took them up on it. And anyway, and I'm finally doing that secret thing that makes it possible to make a lot of money in show business. I'm going into rehab.
Okay. But maybe for a slightly different reason than most people do.
John McEuen is in rehab. Oh, let's go buy his records.
Yeah, you know what? You're right, because most people don't read beyond the headline anyway. So
Right.
no matter what you're in there for, they'll just see the rehab.
Yeah. So anyway, the rehab is going well, and I'm going to be back on the road in August.
Oh, that's fantastic. Yeah, I definitely want to get to that, because that was another question I was wondering, was when you're going to be back out on the road. So that's fantastic. Now, John, when you joined Rosie and I a couple of years ago, you were in Italy, which was pretty cool because we had to make sure we were aware of the time change and whatnot. And we really enjoyed that conversation all the way back to Magician Days with Steve Martin, all the way through to that time 2 years ago. But what I really like to do now is focus on your latest project, which I think is fascinating, and I love it, The Newsman.
Well, you've heard it. Good.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I read past the rehab headline and I looked at what you were up to.
Good for you.
Yeah. But what I found so cool about this, John, was this is a really fascinating collection of spoken word tracks. There's also an instrumental tune on there, Jules' theme, which I think should be part of a movie soundtrack or something. It's phenomenal.
What did you say?
Jules' theme, the instrumental track that's on there, that should be part of a movie soundtrack. It's phenomenal.
I heard you the first time.
Oh.
I just thought you'd say it again.
You know, it's coming back to me now, your sense of humor, because you got me 2 or 3 times last time, and you'll probably do the same tonight.
Well, yeah, Jules' theme is an important song to me. I played it on the piano, and I don't normally play a piano, so fools people when I do it. I'm a really good piano player on that song. The next song, where's the piano player?
Well, it's like I said, you're a multi-instrumentalist.
Yeah, but that's a one trick on the piano for me. But that one's decent. I recorded that when I was doing the Steve Martin album, The Crow, which we won a Grammy with.
Yeah.
And I was producing The Crow, and I was in Nashville, and I booked a couple hours off of the Steve Martin album for me to record with that piano that was in this studio, this magic piano. And I went in and did it and said, okay, we're done. And then started the rest of the session. And that was 13 years ago.
Oh, wow.
And then the next year, I put a guitar on, then a bass, and then it sat there for a couple of years. And I moved to New York, and then I put a girl who was working for me that was a student at Juilliard playing oboe. And have you ever played on a recording? No, I haven't. You want to? Yes, I do. Anyway, so I got her to play oboe on this, and it came out wonderful. I think I listened to it, and I can't figure out why I can't make more music like that. Maybe I need to go.
Well, like I said, it really is. And it stands out not just because it's the only instrumental track on there, but it really can stand on its own. That's why I said I listened to it, And all I could see, I was trying to visualize like what kind of movie or what kind of scene that should be accompanying, because that's kind of the feel and the vibe that I got from it. But there's also another track that I wanted to ask you about, because I found this one fascinating as well. It's the title track. And I believe it's you wrote that, right? The Newsman, right?
Yes,
That
I
track?
did.
I felt like it was my good fortune to be inspired by one person in particular, a newsman. And he's come to mind so many times over the years, especially any time when it seemed like what I was doing was tough. He didn't write the news, and he didn't make it. He delivered it. And I'm glad to this day our paths crossed.
That's a fascinating story, and it's a true story based on a prior experience of yours with a newsman, right? You delivered
Absolutely
papers.
true. Absolutely true story about a crippled guy in Hollywood in 1966 and 7. Probably there in 68 too, but he used to sell newspapers up and down Sunset Boulevard. After he'd haul them around on his motor scooter, and he'd come up to you in the restaurant, Ben Frank's restaurant, for instance, and it's kind of, would you like to buy a newspaper? You know, and had trouble talking, and was kind of like, I'm not making fun of him at all. Nobody made fun of him, and he got something from everybody that they didn't have for each other. And that was, like I say in the story, he got respect. Everybody respected him because he was out there working,
Yeah.
working every day, taking care of himself, bringing in his own money to make a living, and getting into the record companies and the agencies that these people in the restaurant couldn't. We're trying. I got a meeting at APA next month. You know, it was like they would, and this guy would go in every day. Steve was his name. Yes, and the newsman was an important guy. I thought of him when I was on the road with the Dirt Band. That was when the Dirt Band was starting, Nitty Gritty Dirt Band. And I was a road manager because I was the only one old enough to rent a car. So I rented the car. And sometimes I would complain. Then I'd think about Steve, the newsman, and he'd get up at 5 in the morning to go get his papers. And by 8 in the morning, he's up on the Sunset. And I had it easy. I only had to travel 12 hours to get to this show and play. And, you know, it's just like, anyway.
Yeah, he was probably up early in the morning too, getting those papers.
Yeah, he'd get up probably. I saw him at 5:30. First time going, I was going to the airport to go to Boston, and I saw him. Wow, where's that guy going? Oh, he's selling papers. Then I saw him a week later when I came back, kind of stumbling around the restaurant. And although he was handicapped, he didn't get the good parking spaces. There weren't any.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Times were different back then.
Anyway, that's an example of how old this album is. That I wrote that probably 12 or 13 years ago, and put it in with these other pieces that I'd been collecting very carefully to make up this album that I guess it appeals to you. Thank you.
Yeah, and like I said, what I found really interesting about most of the tracks really on the album, because I do have a follow-up question on that, was that there's so many different places I could see the listener sitting back, relaxing, and just putting this album on, and just you take people, the stories, you take people to different destinations, and I just find that so cool and so relaxing. And that was the first track on the album, so that got me roped in, and then listened to the rest. And I was wondering, John, with the rest of the tracks, how did you go about narrowing down all these pieces you collected to fine tune it to what landed on the album?
I don't know. I think it was having worked on this over a 12-year period. I would put them in different orders on my computer, you know, and I also recorded some of these last year. A couple of them were last year, and they fit in right where they needed to. Like Old Rivers fit in perfect as the song where it's placed. I believe in sequencing is important in an album. If you can make an album entertaining, like Uncle Charlie and his dog Teddy with the Nitty Gritty Dirt Band. My brother produced that record and was managing the group then too. And it's an entertaining album. You can't predict what the next song is going to be by hearing song number 4. You're not going to know what song number 5 is like. You might go from rock and roll to a classical banjo song, to bluegrass, to folk music, to whatever. Kept you interested, kept you turning the page, you know. It's so I was just trying to make an album that would, when people got this and took it home, they take this home and they put it in their CD player. They go on a journey.
Yes.
They go on the journey I've been on, meeting people, collecting stuff. Fly Trouble was fun. Now let's go back to 1948, and this is a song Hank Williams Sr. would do. Oh, that he did. Hank Williams Sr., as Luke the Drifter, did a talking blues song. Fly Trouble was fun. Did you ever sit straight up in bed with something circling around your head? You spot it as it whizzes by, and it's just one pesky little fly. Shake your head, twitch your nose, settle down to sweet repose. Fly Trouble. And it's like something bites you on the nose, you know? It's like, you can't be serious listening to that.
Yeah. Well, but I think, John, you nailed it. It really does. It takes you on a journey, and each track kind of takes you to a different place. There's a different sound, a different feel, a different vibe. And it's almost like this collection of short stories set to amazing music, and really did. It just takes you away.
I was worried, I still am worried about that, jumping from the Civil War to Vietnam War. Is that going to be disorienting? Oh, Vietnam to Civil, that's disorienting. Never mind.
Yeah.
I thought of that. Is it going to be tough to go to these different places that are so different? Will Old Rivers fit in there? I think so. I just have to take the chance. I think the audience is smart enough, after hearing years of hip hop music and a lot of talking and rap and talking with music has been around a long time.
Yeah.
You got trouble, my friends, right here in River City. Why, sure, I'm a billiard player. Certainly mighty proud to say I'm always mighty proud to say it. You ever consider an ironclad leave for a 3-rail billiard shot? And any fool can take and shove a ball in that pocket. It's like, that was a big hit in Music Man when it came out. And Alice's Restaurant by Arlo Guthrie. Devil Went Down to Georgia by
Charlie Daniels.
Yeah, and Steve Martin, King Tut.
Yeah,
was a talking record. And that was a dirt band, by the way, that played the music.
I was going to say, I knew you had something to do with that album, or with that song.
My brother managed Steve, and we had done it a week before in LA, and it just blew the room away. Just worked it up in the dressing room and went out on stage and did it. And if the song can go over that good, anyway, other talking song, Johnny Cash, Boy Named Sue. Oof. They don't think of Johnny Cash doing a comedy song. Anyway, so I figured, well, I can take the chance with this.
Yeah. Well, your voice too, John. There's something about the way your voice and how you tell the stories. That is a huge part of it. I think of what drew me in was just the sincerity and the sound of your voice. Like, you should do audiobooks.
I've been trying to, but I can't get work. I mean, it's hard. It's a hard business.
Yeah.
I'd love to do audiobooks. Matt Carsonis, who sings on Vacant Chair on this album, He was nominated for a Grammy for an audiobook he produced. He produces audiobooks. He's a great, funny stage person, guitar player, singer, and he produces audiobooks. But I'd like to do it, but it's in the future.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you this, John. How would you say the album's been received thus far? What kind of feedback have you heard? I've read quite a few very favorable articles about it, very complimentary articles from different sources, but what kind of feedback have you heard?
I gotta say, it blows me away. What kind of feedback have I heard?
Yeah.
Brilliant. Two different people used brilliant.
Wow.
Okay, I like that. Another person said, this astonishing collection of blah, 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 blah. And this Americana-driven folk, it's all positive. And I just hope people will pick it up, download it, buy it. If you buy it, if you get it from my website, which is my mother thought of the name of my website, it's John McEuen. I added .com. She goes, who's Dot? And anyway, MCEUEN. John, John. Anyway, if you buy it from my website, you get a signed one. If you download it from Spotify, I can't sign the web. I can't sign.
Yeah, because my iTunes version wasn't signed either.
Yeah. You can buy both.
Yeah. Well, there's something to having that physical copy, kind of going back to when you were talking about the newspaper and the newsman. There's always something better about holding that CD or holding that newspaper rather than just reading it on a computer or just hearing the song digitally.
Yeah, there is. Like this album here, Will the Circle Be Unbroken? I don't know if you're familiar with that or not.
Oh, yeah.
My brother produced that and shot all the photos inside. He shot all the photos that I put in the book called Will the Circle Be Unbroken, also available on my website. And it's got descriptions of every person. 105 shots from the session are described here. And oops, this is copy. Anyway.
Yeah, and John, a lot of the tracks on that album were pretty much just one take, weren't they?
I think about 5 of these were one take. A couple of them were 2 takes, and then a couple of them were. Oh, you mean on the Circle album?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I was thinking. I thought you meant the Newsman album. Yeah, I always try to get one take, first take. I like Old Rivers. I wanted to do, and I kept thinking about it and thinking of it. And I played it with the guitar, and I went, okay, well, I'll try it tomorrow. No, I'll try it tomorrow. No, the next tomorrow. And finally I went last November, do Old Rivers. It should be on this album. This is the first song I've ever heard that really got to me, and I didn't play music yet. I was only 14 or 15.
Wow.
And when I heard him saying, one of these days I'm going to climb that mountain, walk up there among them clouds where there ain't no fields to plow. It was like, it said something to me. The guy was, what was the first time I seen Old Rivers? Well, I can't remember. He was always around. Spent his whole life doing hard work, always walking that plowed ground. You know, it's like a lot gets said in those few lines.
Yeah.
I didn't meet the Old Rivers. I mean, I always knew him. And he walked the plowed ground. You know, he was a farmer. He worked hard. And anyway,
no, it definitely resonates, and I could see how it resonated with you when you first heard it, because it's when lyrics are written that well, they paint pictures, they tell stories, and it just pulls you in.
And this doesn't necessarily tell the story of you could be a farmer or you could be a guy standing behind a mule. It's like, it tells a story of running that plow and digging those rows straight and deep as any job that a person will do. That he goes out and spends his whole life going back and forth on the field. and he just wants to go climb that mountain up there in the clouds where there ain't no fields to plow, and call in the dogs. And anyway, and I was happy with it. I did that in one take. Like Pineapple John was one take too. And that was a fun one. John Carter Cash wrote Pineapple John, son of Johnny and June.
Mhm.
And I recorded it at Cash Cabin Studios out in Hendersonville.
Oh, wow.
That was really fun.
Yeah. Now, one thing I want to make sure, John, I touch on, because we touched on a little bit earlier, but there's going to be some touring coming up. You're going to be hitting the road a little bit later this summer, right? Can you talk to me a little bit about that?
Well, yeah, I had to, because of the heart attack I had. Did I mention that?
Yes.
Yeah, because of, I just did an interview. It's not that I forgot. Yes, I remember now mentioning it. that I had to cancel May, June, July dates out there, but I have dates starting in August that I'm going to go out and do August, September, October, and getting back to it. And I'm looking forward to that.
No, so I'm sure everybody that's anywhere near where you're going to be is looking forward to it as well, because I know we'll be checking your website and checking to see what areas you're coming to. And if you're anywhere near us, we will definitely be there.
Thank you.
Yeah, because now that you're a returning guest, number one, we also want to meet you in person. You know, Zoom is great, and it helps us get together with a lot of people we might not otherwise be able to see. But there's nothing like having a chance to see someone perform, meeting them in person. It's one of the really fun things that we get to do, John. And before we wrap things up, I have a question I didn't get to ask you the last time you joined us, so I want to ask it now, because you've accomplished so much in your amazing career, including this latest project. But if you were to look back, what would you say you're most proud of?
Uncle Charlie and his dog Teddy, and the Circle Being Broken album. And I don't know. And then 17 years into being in the Dirt Band, our first #1 record, Long Hard Road, came out. And I'm very proud of that. I played the guitar and banjo on it, and Jimmy sang it, and I could tell sitting there in the studio, tick it, tick it, tick it. He started singing. I go, man, this is going to be coming out of the radio. It's one of the 6 times I've been in the studio recording going, this is a radio song. King Tut was one, Bojangles was one, Long Hard Road was one, Dance Little Jean. What was the other?
Wow.
Oh, and a couple others that have come to mind over the years.
That's pretty impressive that you can tell while you're in there that it's got that sound.
Well, I'd like to think that it had the sound, you know what I mean? It just really felt like it. Felt right. It felt like this is not missing anything. Way back in my memory, there's a scene that I recall. He was a magical singer, Jimmy Ibbotson. He sang just like people wanted to hear.
Yeah, no, for sure, for sure. And you know, it is amazing, John, because as I was asking you that question about what are you most proud of, I'm thinking, how can you possibly even narrow that down with all of those things and all of those accomplishments and all of those gifts that you've brought to us through your music and through your work? And just really want to thank you for all of that. I am so glad that you're out and about. You're going to be out touring again later this summer. I really appreciate you joining me here on In the Spotlight. And I really look forward to seeing you down the road, on the road. And I wish you nothing but the best with the Newsman.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Bill. And Rosie, thank you for your editing.
She is the best at that. That's for sure. That's for sure.
Well, I guess I should thank my mom too.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me, Mom. Yeah.
I think we've covered all the bases, John. Well, thanks so much for joining me. I really appreciate it. I wish you nothing but the best and nothing but success, good health in your travels. And folks, thank you so much for watching. We'll see you next time.